بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Welcome back to our fifth class, alhamdulillah, of studying the Ikhtiyar, the Ta'lil al-Mukhtar, by the great Imam al-Musili. We're going to speed it up a bit. So if you were watching on the recording, we're going to be going a bit quicker because I want to finish this chapter before, at least ideally within the next 2 weeks. It has to be done before Ramadan, and ideally before all of Ramadan is done. So today we're going to finish all the way, everything about the moon sighting, and we're going to get to the chapter of what breaks one's fast. Next week, we're going to do what breaks one fast. And that's not too long of a chapter. It's like 4 pages. The next week, I'm thinking we'll do what doesn't breaks one fast and what is makruh, and then what is like recommended, and we'll do that inshallah. So I'm thinking we could finish this in 3 weeks, if not 2 weeks, depending on how next week goes and how today goes. But like I said, the stuff about breaking the fast is actually not that long. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4 pages, so it's not that difficult. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. قال المصنف رحمه الله تعالى ونفعنا الله به وبكم في الدارين آمين. So we're now right here where it says وإن لم يكن بالسماء علة لم تقبل إلا شهادة جمع يقع العلم بخبرهم وهو مفوض إلى رأي الإمام من غير تقدير هو الصحيح، وهذا لأن المطالع متحدة والموانع مرتفعة والأبصار صحيحة والهمم في طلب الرؤية متقاربة، فلا يجوز أن يختص بالرؤية البعض القليل. نعم. وروى الحسن عن أبي حنيفة رضي الله عنه أنه يكفي شهادة الاثنين كما في سائر الحقوق، ولو جاء رجل من خارج المشرق وشهد به تقبل، وكذا إذا كان على مكان مرتفع في البلد كالمنارة ونحوها، لأن الرؤية تختلف باختلاف صفاء الهواء وكدرته وباختلاف ارتفاع المكان وهبوطه، ولما تقدم من حديث الأعرابي. Okay, so he says, for the explanation, he says that if there is not anything blocking the vision of the moon in the sky, right? So there's no clouds, there's nothing blocking the viewpoint. It's possible to see it. And even calculation-wise, maybe they said that it's possible to see, it's visible, right? Regardless whether or not we're looking at whether or not the calculations establishes the moon or not. We looked at that last week. So in this case, we will not accept the witness of just one person. So we saw that if there is something blocking the view, we'll accept one person, right? One upright, righteous person's witness. But if there's something not blocking it, it should be seen, then they will only accept a large group of people that knowledge is established by their witness, right? So what that means is, you hear one person say something, you're like, are you sure? You hear 15 people tell you they saw the moon, right? You can pretty much assume that it is that the moon's been established, right? But he says that this is actually, according to the strongest opinion, this is completely left up to the imam. So the imam decides what he considers to be enough, sufficient, right? So it's not up to individual people, the imam. And that's why in a Muslim country, right, the individual views aren't actually accepted, right? So what I mean by that is that when the imam establishes that tomorrow is Ramadan or tomorrow is not Ramadan, the entire community has to follow that, right? There's no discussion between the public and the imam. The imam that's it. His word is final. But in places like America, this is where you look for, right, a large group of people, and that's usually why you have like a committee or a group of people who go out and try and see the moon. And the reason why is because مطالع متحدة, right? Everyone is, the ability to see the moon should, when people are seeing it, should be clear, right? uh, because what he's saying is that the hemisphere is the same, right? So in in one area of people, one area, right? It's all everyone has equal ground to sight the moon. Now we're going to talk about whether or not one person is like on a higher area than somewhere else. But in general, right, you have an equal opportunity, right? So to say that only one person, right, is accepted, but two, is sufficient. It's not really clear because he says that there's nothing really blocking it. There's nothing in the sky. Everyone's eyes are clear, are okay, they're healthy, and everyone is trying to see the moon, right? It's a communal obligation, and everyone is eager to start the fast, right? So because of all those factors, we need more people, right? So because if you just said one person, two people, it doesn't really, with all of with all of the ability to sight the moon, why are there only two people, right? So if it's so clear, why did only two people sight the moon, right? Why, first of all, why are there not more people going out? And then second of all, why did only two people see the moon? There should be more. So there's a bit of doubt there, a lot of doubt actually, and that's why um, it's better to have a group of people. But Hassan narrates from Abu Hanifa's opinion, that because it's like every other um, every other right in the deen, even two upright people, right, would be accepted, right? So two men or one man and two women, if they're accepted, if they bear witness, that'll actually be accepted, because it's like every other um, uh, witness. Any questions about that? Okay, so now he says that, but what happens if one person comes from outside of their village? So we're talking about we're all in one area, we're all in one community, one town, one area, county. But someone comes and bears witness, right? So they bear witness that they saw the moon, right? Or if one person came from a very, very high place, right? Like a mountain or on a minaret, for example, their witness is accepted as long as they're upright, even if it's one person, right? And the reason why is because although they all had the opportunity in the general system to go sight the moon, when someone comes from a more advantageous spot, like a minaret, like a higher place, right? Then he says the conditions will change, right? There might be clearer air up there. There might be less pollution, less light. Um, and because there's the hadith we already mentioned that the Prophet he accepted the witness of one person, right? So they didn't see the moon that night, and the next day, a desert Bedouin came and bared witness that he saw the moon, and the Prophet accepted his witness. So if no one's seen the moon, but one person comes and bears witness from an advantageous spot, then that will be accepted, right? Because of his advantageous side. But if they're all in the same area, then one person's not accepted. And the reason why is because like when if ever anyone who's actually gone and seen the moon, when you go see the moon, if someone says they saw the moon, they yell, "Oh my God, I saw the moon!" And everyone goes and looks for it. Where is it? Right? So if that one person, everyone's there, and the one person says, "I saw the moon," and then no one else can find it, you're gonna be, I don't know about that, right? How are there 20, 30, 50 people here and no one else can see the moon besides you two or you three, right? That's kind of a bit far-fetched. So um, that is if there's nothing blocking the sky. We mentioned already that if there is something blocking the sky, then one person is valid, whether or not it's a male or a female, whether or not they're free or actually enslaved, right? It doesn't matter. As long as they're upright and they bear witness, it's accepted. Okay. All right. The next thing he says is, قال فإذا ثبت في بلد لازم جميع الناس ولا اعتبار باختلاف المطالع، هكذا ذكره القاضي خان. قال وهو ظاهر الرواية ونقله عن شمس الأئمة السرخسي، وقيل يختلف باختلاف المطالع. وذكر في الفتاوى الحسامية إذا صام أهل مصر 30 يوما برؤية وأهل مصر آخر 29 يوما برؤية فعليهم قضاء يوم إن كان بين المصرين قريب بحيث تتحد المطالع، وإن كانت بعيدة بحيث تختلف لا يلزم أحد المصرين حكم الآخر. وذكر في المنتقى عن أبي يوسف يجب عليهم قضاء يوم من غير تفصيل. وعن ابن عباس في مثله لهم ما لهم ولنا ما علينا ما لنا. وعن عائشة فطر كل بلدة يوم يفطر جماعتهم، وأضحى كل بلدة يوم يضحي جماعتهم. Okay, so this is a nice paragraph. So he says, now once they have established the moon sighting in an area, in a town, in a balad, it is obligatory upon the entire world, right? ولا اعتبار باختلاف المطالع. And they do not consider the difference in hemisphere, right? So other madhabs, like the Shafi'i madhab, for example, they need local sightings, which means that it has to be in your hemisphere. You have to have sighted the moon. And Hanafi, one accepted witness suffices the entire ummah, right? So we look for global sightings. So if one person in England sees it, everyone fasts. If one person in Saudi sees it, not one person, I mean one group of people. If it's established, right, by one group of people, and their witness is accepted, everyone is it's obligatory upon them to fast. Now this is going to change if they don't accept it, right? So if one doesn't actually even accept that person's witness, that's different, right? They wouldn't. But once it is accepted, then the entire world has to fast, right? And this is the strongest opinion in the Hanafi madhab. So the Hanafi madhab is global sightings. And this is from the Imam Sarakhsi as well. And this is what Qadi Khan, these are like major scholars in the Hanafi madhab. This is what they are narrating. Now, it is mentioned whenever they say qila, it means that it's a weak opinion. So he says that there is an opinion in the Hanafi madhab that it is local. It depends on the hemisphere. And in the Fatawa al-Humasiyah, there's another point, which is that if one people, right, of a town, or you could say a city, if they fast 30 days with seeing the moon, right, according to their sight, and another town or another area, right, fast 29, right, by seeing it. So what this means is that, right, one fasts 30 days, they complete 30 days, and the other only fast 29, right? So what this means is that, let's say in one town, and one town they say that they saw the moon, they didn't see the moon, for example, on the 29th, right, of Ramadan. And the other area says that they saw the moon. So one area is fasting one extra day, and another area they do Eid. They're doing Eid, right? So according to this, it says that upon the people who broke their fast that day, if they are in the same hemisphere, they have to make up that day. Okay, so I'm going to repeat this. It mentions that if they are in the same hemisphere and they break their fast early by seeing the moon by a sight, and another city in the same hemisphere, right, completed their fast, then they have to make up their fast, right? They have to make up their fast. They have to make up that day. And this could actually be, with regards to so this is actually, I think, in the beginning of the month. So for example, like one city, they see the moon, and the other city says they didn't see the moon. So they fast 30 days, and the 20 days, the ones who didn't see the moon fast 29 days, and the other city fasts 30 days because they saw the moon on the first night. So what this means is now because they're in the same hemisphere and one city saw it, that means that it established it for that hemisphere on both opinions, for the hemisphere or for the global. That means that those who didn't see it, they were just mistaken. They just missed it. So they actually have to fast a makeup day. So it's about the beginning of the month. I confuse that with the end of the month, right? Because it's about establishing the month with the sight of the moon, right? It's about establishing the month with the sight of the moon, not about the end of the month. Because at the end of the month, it would be a different scenario, because if one saw it and the other did not see it, that would be different, right? Because the one who saw it is affirming that the month has ended, right? Whereas in this case, they're affirming that the month has began. So I confused that. And it mentions that, but if they are in different hemispheres, right, then the other one would not have to follow that opinion. So this is on the opinion of local sightings, that if two cities come to different conclusions and they're in different hemispheres, then they don't have to worry about the ruling or the sighting of that other hemisphere, right? Now this is according to that opinion, right? If according to the other opinion, which we're talking about global sightings, right? If one doesn't fast when it's been established, they have to make up that day, right? So if we say that, we all saw the moon, for example, on the 29th of Sha'ban, and we've established it's been accepted. One city didn't reach them. They didn't hear this. They didn't hear the news. They would have to make up that day because we've actually established that Ramadan had come in. You just missed the fast, right? Because it didn't reach you, right? Or you could take this opinion, right? And Abu Yusuf, it mentions that he has an opinion that regardless whether or not they're close or far, then i.e., whether or not they're in the same hemisphere or in a different hemisphere, they have to make it up. And this is what I mentioned, right? This is that regardless, and that's the global sighting. Regardless, even if you're looking at hemispheres or not, if they did not fast the first day when another area has established the moon, they have to make up that day because they missed Ramadan, a day of Ramadan. And Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, he says the same thing. He says, "Lahum ma lahum wa lana ma lana." Right? They have what they have, and we have what we have. They've established so this, I mean, when Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma fi mithlihi, Ibn Abbas, it seems that he's leaning towards the opinion that the different hemispheres allow for different ruling, because he's saying that they have what they've established for them and we have what we've established for ourselves, i.e., showing that there's a difference there. But Aisha radiallahu anha, she says that the breaking of fast of every city is the day that the whole of them, the group of them, break their fast, right? And the Adha of every city is the day that the group of them, right, celebrate Adha, right? And this is mentioned in another hadith, which is in Abu Dawood, which is that وَيَوْمُ الْفِطْرِ يَوْمُ الْفِطْرِ فِيهِ النَّاسِ يَوْمُ يَفْطُرُ فِيهِ النَّاسِ. The day of Fitr is the day that the group of people, i.e., the people, right, break their fast, which is basically saying that everyone, right, everyone breaks their fast on the same day, i.e., that there's not going to be a difference between cities. And what they're saying is that what the hadith is saying is that there's no difference. There cannot be one group doing something here and another group doing something else, right? As soon as the month has been established by one group of people, everyone it's obligatory upon them. So there is no, oh, you didn't see it, so you don't fast, but we've seen it, so we fast. Once one has been established, everyone fasts, and that's global sightings. That's the point of it, right? So the idea of local sightings in the Hanafi madhab, it's a weak opinion, right? So that's why in our school, everyone has Eid on the same day. Everyone has Ramadan begins on the same day, right? It cannot be any other way because it's global sightings, right? Now, this is going to change, as we saw recently. It's going to change because of calculations. So calculations brings in a whole another aspect to this, is because now they don't care about the sighting. Some people will look to just when the moon has actually entered into its phase. So they establish the month by calculations, and others are looking for the sighting. So because of that, there will be a difference. No one's like we had this Ramadan. No one saw the moon, so everyone started fasting on Tuesday or on Tuesday, right? But today, first day of Ramadan. But a lot of places they use calculations, so they began on Monday. So now the ummah is split, but not because of the site, but because of the calculations. And that has its own ruling, as we talked about last week, inshallah. So that's just mentioning the difference of opinion between global sighting and local sightings. ولا يصام يوم الشك. Any questions? Okay. ولا يصام يوم الشك إلا تطوعا لقوله عليه الصلاة والسلام لا يصام اليوم الذي يشك فيه أنه من رمضان إلا تطوعا، وهو الذي يشك فيه أنه من رمضان أو شعبان، وذلك بأن إن يتحدث الناس بالرؤية ولا تثبت. قال ويلتمس هلال شوال في 29 من رمضان، فمن رآه وحده ولا يفطر أخذ بالاحتياط في العبادة. Okay. So he says, the day of doubt is not fasted except for tatawwa'an. I accept with the clear intention that it is just a nafil fast. So what is the day of shak? The day of shak is you're not sure if it's in Sha'ban or Ramadan. And that's because people are talking, they're discussing about whether or not they saw the moon, but it hasn't been established, right? So maybe in the past, some people had thought that they, said that they had seen the moon, but it wasn't established. So there's doubt, like, was it actually seen? And now we have a lot more clear Yom Shek because everyone is fasting because of calculations, right? But then no one saw the moon. So there's a day of doubt. Is it actually Ramadan? Because the calculations is saying that it's possible to be seen. Calculations is saying that the month has been established. So is it actually Ramadan or is it not, right? Because no one has actually seen the moon. So because no one has actually seen the moon, we don't fast, but it's called the day of doubt, the day of shak. So the Prophet, he says, the day of shak is not fasted, right, with the intention of it being from Ramadan. So it is actually makruh tahriman to intend to fast the day of doubt as if it's part of Ramadan, to make the intention that it's part of Ramadan. This is makruh tahriman, it's sinful, right? You cannot, and there's a clear hadith, right? You cannot add a day to Ramadan, right, because of doubt, right? Right. So the only possible way to fast it is with the intention of it completely being a nafil. And we're going to see more discussions about this, right? And whether, so then the question is like, should we fast it or not? We're going to see that. It's going to come later on. And he says that the month of Shawwal, the moon of Shawwal is also looked for on the 29th of Ramadan. Now, this is different though from Ramadan. We're going to see a couple different rulings. Whoever sees the moon by himself on the 29th of Ramadan does not break his fast the next day. So one person sees the moon, right? No one else is established. So one person, they do not break their fast. Now in Ramadan, we say that they do fast, right? And this is because أخذ بالاحتياط في العبادة, being careful. So if one person saw the moon in the beginning of Ramadan, they fast. Why? Because they saw the moon. It's been established for them, so they fast. But when they see the moon for Sha'ban, for Shawwal, they don't fast. They don't break their fast. Why? Because out of precaution, because no one else has seen it, you do not want to break your fast early, right? It's okay to fast an extra day, right? If you fast one day extra, it's not the end of the world. You get some reward, a lot of reward. But if you break your fast early, it's sinful, right? You missed an act of worship. You missed a day of Ramadan, right? So just one person seeing it by themselves, they stick to the jama'ah. They stick with the community. فإن أفطر قضاه ولا كفارة عليه لما بينا، فإن كان بالسماء علة قبل شهادة رجلين أو رجل وامرأتان لأنها شهادة تعلق بها حق الآدمي فصار كشهادة على حقوق الآدميين، بخلاف رمضان لأنه أمر ديني لا يتعلق به حق الآدمي، على أن مبنى الكل على الاحتياط وهو فيما قلناه. وإن لم يكن علة فجمع كثير لما بينا. وعن أبي حنيفة رضي الله عنه شهادة رجلين كما في سائر الحقوق. So he says, فإن أفطر. Now what happens if he just broke his fast? So he just celebrated Eid though, because he saw the month of the moon of Shawwal. He has to make up that day, right? He has to make up that day out of precaution, right? But he doesn't have to pay kafara. And the reason why is because he still saw it. So there's a doubt here. He's saying that he saw it. So technically you would get, he might have the idea that he can break his fast. He's established the next month. But as we're going to see now, right? Out of precaution, he actually has to, it's wajib for him to make up his fast, right? And actually continue, he had to fast, right? Out of precaution. So he doesn't have to pay kafara because of that doubt, but he doesn't have to make up his fast. Now, it's not the same kind of rulings. If there is something blocking the sky on the 29th of Ramadan to establish the next month of Shawwal, we will accept two male witnesses, or one male and two women, right? So remember, in the beginning of Ramadan, we accepted one person, male or female, to establish the month. But for the end of Ramadan, we can only accept two male witnesses, or one man and two women. Now, why? There are two reasons. The first reason is because everything that we've talked about is based off of Ikhtiyar, is based off of religious precaution, right? And the reason why is because, like I said, it's okay to fast an extra day of Ramadan, right? And we're not going to accuse someone of wanting to fast an extra day of Ramadan. So one person is fine, right? We just, at the end of the day, if he was wrong, we just fasted an extra day. We got some reward, right? But at the end of the month, we have to be extra careful, right? We do not want to just establish it off of one person, and in reality, Ramadan was not in, right? So because of the extra precaution, we have to only accept two male witnesses. The normal standard witness, you could say, formula or requirements to approve something in the religion. That's number one. And the second thing is that because the first moon related to a religious matter, i.e., the religious matter of someone simply fasting Ramadan. I have to now begin fasting. But on the second, at the end of Ramadan, the moon is establishing actually a حقوق al-ibad, right? A haqq al-ibad, which is a communal right, a personal right, a right that is specific to the individuals. And the reason why is because between individuals. And the reason why is because when Ramadan finishes, what becomes obligatory? That Fajr, the next Fajr. Sadaqatul Fitr. It's wajib. That is a haqq between two people, right? That's a haqq from the faqir, right, upon the ghani. So within all of the huquq al-ibad, in all of the rights between human beings, we need two witnesses, right? Two male witnesses, or one male and two females. We can't just accept one, because it's no longer just between one person and Allah. It's between two people, two individual Muslims that have a greater effect on society. So because of that, because we're going to now make Ramadan, complete Ramadan, and everyone's going to break their fast out of precaution, and because now when Ramadan ends, fitr comes in, and now people have to pay their sadaqat al-fitr, we need to absolutely make sure that Ramadan has come out, right? Because we don't want to end Ramadan early, and we don't want to make it obligatory on people to pay sadaqat al-fitr before they had to, right? And this actually has a lot of repercussions, because as we'll see later on, like what happens if someone, if someone dies before Fajr, after Ramadan, they don't have to pay sadaqat al-fitr, right? But if someone died after, they still have to pay it, right? So if we establish it early, right, we're making a lot of people, it's obligatory upon them to now pay sadaqat al-fitr, when it's possible, because it's only one person bearing witness, that those people didn't have to pay it, because they could have died on that day. And there are people who die on the last day of Ramadan. So all of those people that died on the last day of Ramadan, we made it obligatory upon them to pay the sadaqat al-fitr when we weren't 100% sure that they had to, because we only established the end of the month with one person. And that's why you need two witnesses. Okay. وَإِن لَمْ يكن, and same kind of idea though, but if there is nothing blocking the sky, then only a large number of people is accepted. And another narration by Abu Hanifa, he mentions that, 2 people will be accepted, 2 men, just like every other rite, right? Okay. Any questions about that? I know that can be a bit complicated, but I'm trying to break it down in the simplest of manners.
No, that was fine.
Okay. He says, وذو الحجة كالشوال لما يتعلق به من حقوق الآدمية من الأضاحي وغيره، وإذا رأى هلال رمضان أو شوال نهارا قبل الزوال أو بعده فهو لليلة الآتية. فقال أبو يوسف رحمه الله: كذلك إن كان بعد الزوال، وإن كان قبله فللماضية. يروى ذلك عن عمر وعائشة رضي الله عنهما، والأول مروي عن علي وابن مسعود وابن عمر وأنس وعن عمر أيضا رضي الله عنهم، ولأن الشهر ثابت بيقين وبعض الأهلة يكون أكبر من بعض، فيجوز أنهم رأوه قبل الزوال لكبره لا لكونه لليلة الماضية، والثابت بيقين لا يزول بالشك. وقال الحسن بن زياد رحمه الله: إن غاب بعد الشفق فلليلة الماضية وقبله للراهنة. Okay, so now a couple different discussions. So the first thing is that he mentions that the month of Shawwal, of Dhul Hijjah, is like Shawwal. Establishing Dhul Hijjah is like establishing Shawwal by needing 2 witnesses. Right? And the reason why is because it, again, is specific to rights of human beings, which is that they have to give their udhiyah, right? They have to slaughter, right? So the slaughtering is specific to the day of Eid, right? So if you don't establish the ones properly, right, then you're not slaughtering on the day on the day properly. You're not getting that sunnah. So because of that, and because of the sadaqah that comes from the udhiyah, right, the slaughtering, we need to establish it with absolute certainty. Right now, everyone nowadays will just follow Saudi, right? And because they're the dawla that is in charge of this, then everyone follows their opinion. Right? And some people might actually, like I've heard, they don't. They'll try and like cite them with themselves and do eat a different day, but that's actually incorrect, right? So as long as because the dawla itself is establishing it and they're in charge of Hajj, then that's what we follow, right? You should not go to Hajj and then do Eid a different day, right? Okay, now a separate masala, which is that what happens if we see the moon of Ramadan the next morning? Okay, so we see it the next morning or after Zawal or after Dhuhr, right? Does it count for for yesterday, or is it for the next night? So the strongest opinion in the madhab is that it's for the next night. So for example, like yesterday, let's say today. Today is Tuesday, first day of Ramadan. Today we saw or actually no, not today, because we saw the moon last night. So he's saying like yesterday we saw the moon after Fajr, or we saw it after Dhuhr. Does that mean that it counted that Monday was actually the first day of Ramadan? It counted for the night before, or is it for the next day, for today, right? The Hanafi opinion is that it's for today. So if you see the moon after you did not see the moon, it's for the next day, right? Regardless of when you see it. And we're gonna have a couple different disagreements, but that's just the main point. Abu Yusuf says, he gives a kind of a different opinion. He says that if it's after Zawal, it's the same thing. So after Zawal, after Dhuhr, then it's for the next day. But if it was before, then it's for the night before, right? Then it's for the night before. And his idea is that if when you see it after, or sorry, before, it's showing that it was close to that night, so it counts for that night. And they don't actually mention a lot of the discussion here, which you'll get into in later books. Right? So when you see it before the Zawal, then that shows that it's closer to that night, so it's for the previous night. But after Zawal, if you only saw it after Dhuhr, then it's clear that it's probably, because it's closer, it's for the next night. And this is narrated from Umar radiallahu anhu and Aisha. right? But the first opinion, which is that regardless of when you see it, it's for the next night, that's narrated from Ali, Ibn Mas'ud, Ibn Umar, Anas, and Umar radiallahu anhu. So this is like the majority, is that it counts for the next night. And now the logical proof is that we've established that we did not see the moon. We've established that Sha'ban has been completed because we did not see the moon. Right? So because we didn't see the moon, we completed 30 days of Sha'ban, and Ramadan has now started. Right? And it's possible that because sometimes the moon or the way that you see it, it looks bigger than others. Right? Or he mentions that sometimes the moon will be bigger than other moons, right? Or it might be clearer on some days. So because of that, it doesn't really matter when you see it in the next day, right? Um, so it's possible that you only saw it before Zawal because it was a big moon, for example, not because it was for the night before, right? So it's possible. What they're trying to say is that, it's not really clear that if you saw it the next day, it's for the night before, right? It's not really clear. It could be that it's for the next night. It could be that it's showing up for the next night and not just for the last night. And it doesn't really matter about it happening before Zawal because it could just be a big moon and now it's going to show for the next night. وَالثَّابِتُ بِيَقِينٍ لَا يَزُولُ بِالشَّكِّ. And what we've established with absolute certainty was that no one saw the moon and that Sha'ban has been completed. We do not change that. We don't change the ruling of Sha'ban being completed and not seeing the moon by the possibility, by the doubt that this moon that we're seeing in the day is for it could have been for last night or for the next night. There's doubt. It's like, is it for next night or is it for last night? Which one is it? We don't know. So the certainty of not seeing the moon is not removed by the doubt of what moon it is, what moon we're seeing in the day. Right. So because of that, it's for the next night. Right. Okay. As well as, there's, it doesn't mention it here, but we already do not consider any sightings of the moon that aren't be after Maghrib due to the hadith. Right. So it's, and like maybe ijma', I'm not sure about that, but I'll have to look up at whether it's ijma' on that. But in the Hanafi madhab, it's clear from the hadith that we do not establish the sighting of the moon, right, from the next morning. So because of that, it can only be after Maghrib. So because of that, regardless, we won't look at it in the day, right? It's going to be for the next night, because if we did not see it after Maghrib, in the nighttime, then we could not have used it to establish the beginning of the next month. And there's another opinion, Hassan ibn Ziyad, his own opinion, one of the students of Imam of Abu Hanifa, he says that if it disappears after twilight, that it's for the past night, and before twilight, then it's for the next night. This opinion is weak. It's not the mu'tamad, right? So we're not going to really explain that, and he doesn't actually even address it. Okay. واختلف العلماء في يوم الشك هل صومه أفضل أم الفطر؟ قالوا إن كان صام شعبان أو وافق صوم كان يصومه فصومه أفضل، وإن لم يكن كذلك قال محمد بن سلمة رضي الله عنه الفطر أفضل بناء على الحديث. قال نصير بن يحيى رحمه الله الصوم أفضل لما روينا عن علي وعائشة رضي الله عنهما، وعن أبي يوسف رحمه الله وهو المختار أن المفتي يصوم وهو وخاصته، ويفتي العامة بالتلوم إلى ما قبل الزوال لاحتمال ثبوت الشهر، وما بعد ذلك لا صوم، وهو يمكنه الصوم على وجه يخرج من الكراهة ولا كذلك العامة. Okay, so the final discussion for tonight is the disagreements about whether or not fasting the day of doubt is better or not. Right? Is it better to fast the day of doubt or not? We've already established that you cannot fast as the day of Ramadan. That's sinful. And that you would only have to make the intention to fast it as a nafil fast, purely nafil. And there's actually in the Hidayah, they mentioned 5 different intentions one could have for Yom HaShak. So it's a long discussion. But is it better to fast it or not? Right? Now, they mention that if he normally fasted Sha'ban, or he used to fast on a certain day. So let's say like the Yom HaShak happened to be on a Monday. He always fasted Monday and Thursday, for example. Then for him to fast it is better. It's better for him to fast. Um, now, if that's the first part of the question, right? So if it's something that he used to always do, he should keep doing his habit. Let's say now it's not one of his habits. I don't really fast in Shaban. I never have. I don't know, and it didn't land. It landed on a Wednesday. I don't fast on Wednesday. So now more discussion. Muhammad ibn Salama, rahimahullah, he says that it's better to not fast. If you have not made, if it's not a habit of yours, you should not fast. Right? This is from a hadith. Right? And this is a hadith which was that do not put one day, right? Do not precede one Ramadan by one day or 2 days, except one who used to fast it, right? So one should not precede Ramadan with 1 day or 2 days unless they used to fast it as a normal habit. And this is in Bukhari and Muslim, right? So it's a strong hadith. So this is what Muhammad says. And Nusayr ibn Yahya, he says that it's better. And that's because there's a hadith that also mentions that Aisha radiallahu anhuma, she used to say that, we saw this hadith earlier, that to fast a day of Shaban is more beloved to me than to miss a day of Ramadan. Right? Abu Yusuf, and this is the strongest opinion in the madhab, is that the mufti, the person who establishes rulings in the madhab, or to the people, he will fast it, him and those who he deems fit to fast, those who he has taught fiqh. And he will give the fatwa to the general public to talawwam. Now, talawwam is when you wait until half of the day, right, to see. So you haven't actually intended to fast, because remember, in Ramadan, you can make the intention up until half the day. So he commands the general public to wait. They wait until half the day to see, if any other reports came in. You know what? Oh, because sometimes reports, especially back then, could come in later, right? They didn't necessarily come in that same day. They might come in the next day in the morning, right? Like it took a long time for the messenger to get there, right? So they would wait. And if the messenger came, like in the other hadith where the Arabi came and he told the Prophet, then everyone would fast. So they make the intention, because they haven't eaten, it counts for Ramadan. So he commands the public to do that. And if no one comes, if they don't establish it as Ramadan, then they just don't fast that day. They break their fast. They were never fasting, right? But he, i.e. the mufti, and those who are specific, who he's taught, they would fast, right? They would fast. And now, what does it mean, someone who is specific, like a special? Someone who knows the rulings of the fasting such that he can make the intention to fast, right, without any dislike in it, right? He can specifically differentiate his intentions, which means that he can specifically fast that day as a nafil fast and not with a conditional fast. So it's also makruh to say, if it's Ramadan, I'm fasting Ramadan. If it's not Ramadan, I'm fasting a nafil. That's also makruh. It's conditional, right? Or another conditional would be like, if it's Ramadan, I'm fasting Ramadan. If it's not Ramadan, I'm not fasting. That's actually not even an intention, right? So because the general public will be confused by this. Imagine you tell someone, this extra day, this day of doubt, we haven't seen the moon, but you probably should fast it. But make sure it's not for Ramadan. And make sure it's not a conditional intention. People are going to be like, what are you even talking about? Why are you telling me to fast this? It's not Ramadan, right? And if you're saying I should fast it, are you saying it's Ramadan? They might just think it's Ramadan. They might make it, that conditional fast. So because of that, because of the doubt, the strongest opinion is that if someone usually fasts this day, they should fast that day, just as a normal nafil, like they always do. And if they don't, then if they know the fiqh rulings, which now you do, you would be of the khawas, then you would fast it and get the reward of just a nafil fast. And if you weren't, though, if you didn't learn your fiqh, a general Muslim, then you don't fast it. You should not fast it. And you should not, and the Imam, the Mufti would encourage people not to fast it. They would wait and then they would fast it. And the reason why is because of the hadith that we mentioned. When you do fast it as a nafil, because in Ramadan, you don't have to specify your intention. If in reality it did happen to be for Ramadan, it would count for Ramadan. We mentioned, right? In Ramadan, you don't need a specific intention. You can make an intention to fast a nafil fast in Ramadan, and it counts for Ramadan, right? So because of that, with the intention of a pure nafil, it would still count for Ramadan if Ramadan came in, but that you can't make a conditional intention. You also cannot make the intention to fast Ramadan. So because that's very hard for people to understand, they should just not fast it, except for those who have learned their fiqh and who have a strong hold of it, inshallah. So that, alhamdulillah, is the end of the chapter of everything to do with establishing the moon, the witnesses, and the definitions of fasting, intentions. And now we're going to get on to probably the most important thing, which is what breaks the fast. What breaks the fast? And there are two categories. That which breaks the fast and you need to pay a kafara, an expiation, and that which breaks the fast and you don't have to pay anything. You just have to make up that day, right? The stuff that doesn't break your fast, I mean, it's good to, you can know it, but it's not that important because it doesn't break your fast, right? And the makruh things we'll learn as well. So, inshallah, that's going to be the next topic next week. Any questions, Abdulaziz, about anything that we covered today?
No, not at all. Thank you.
Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair. سبحانك
وإياك.
اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.